The Tolkien Road, Episode 52, The Silmarillion, Chapter 20, Of the Fifth Battle, Nirnaeth Arnoediad. Alright, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 the Tolkien Road,
Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through the works and philosophy of J.R.R. Tolkien. On this episode, we discuss Chapter 20 of the Silmarillion. It's an action-packed chapter and an important turning point in the fortunes of the Eldar. Speaking of turning points, if you haven't already, now is the time to turn on iTunes and leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback. It's easy to do, only takes a moment, and is the best way to show your appreciation for what we're doing here. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Tolkien Road. John here. Greta.
So,
you are joining me. What's up?
I'm joining you. Not much, John. What's up with you?
Not much. Chapter 20
Yeah.
of the Silmarillion.
We're just moving right along, aren't we?
Yeah, so how would you say this? You just heard me say it. How would you say it?
How would I say this chapter? Yeah. Let's see. I would say of the fifth battle.
Good so far.
Mm-hmm.
Good so far.
And that's where I would stop.
Oh, okay. You wouldn't even try, huh?
No, I wouldn't even try.
No. What if I paid you $1 million to try?
Mm-hmm. Then I would try.
Okay.
So you got the cash or what?
Maybe you should try and then see.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it's kind of like risk reward, right? Like, what's the biggest risk possible that I don't really have $1 million and I'm lying about paying you $1 million?
Right.
But you just made a
fool
complete
of
fool of
myself.
yourself in front of a whole lot of Tolkien fans. So.
Right. Yeah. I know. Well, whatever. I'll try.
You only live once, right?
There you go.
That's right.
There you go. All right. I would say of the fifth battle, Nirnaeth Arnoediad.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually not I don't consider myself a Tolkien language expert, so
Yeah,
I can't be certain that I'm saying it correctly, but I
Right.
think it's Nirnaeth Arnoediad.
Oh, I wasn't too far off.
Yeah. Yours more like that's how.
I was Charlie
That's what I
Brown's
got from
mom
you.
talking.
That's right.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're trying. We should. So in a couple of weeks, we're hoping to interview someone who's kind of a Tolkien language,
Oh, yeah.
a Tolkien language expert.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
more to follow on that, but maybe we can ask him
How he would say
how
it.
he would say it.
The correct way to say it.
Yeah.
So, question: is that a place, or is that the name of the battle?
That's the name of the battle.
That's the name of the battle. Is
Unnumbered
it
Tears.
named after where it takes place?
No, it's it means unnumbered tears.
Oh, is that what it means?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you had read the chapter, you would know that.
Yeah, I did read the chapter.
Oh, you did.
I did.
Missed that part, huh?
Maybe I may have skimmed that.
It's
that
a long.
paragraph.
This is a dense chapter, right? There's a
It
lot of
is,
stuff
there's
that
a
happens in this
lot.
chapter.
There is a lot to take in.
Mm-hmm.
That may have just flown under the radar.
Right.
The old faulty radar.
Yeah, that old faulty radar. I mean, if we weren't using the old World War II vintage, we'd be working the radars. We're using the radars of Tolkien's day. Did you know? I think Tolkien was something like a radar operator during World War II.
Really?
What was it? That's not quite right. Maybe he was like he did something. He participated in some because he was a young man during World War I. He fought in World War I, right?
Right.
So by the time World War II rolled around, he was he was getting into his 50s.
Yeah.
He was nearing his 50s, but even so, they were under their homeland was under attack, right? So he did something. He played some part because every able-bodied man, and probably most of the women too played some part, and especially during the Battle of Britain when they were getting bombed every day and every hour by the Nazis. But anyway, you just mentioned radar, and
And you're a brain and Reed went to World Wars.
Yeah.
So I dig it.
Yeah, right on.
It's all good.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Time for some of that.
I thought you'd never hit play. Here it goes. Let's groove. Oh, man.
Right on.
Awesome. Gets better every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
It's like a fine wine.
It is.
Just gets better with age.
Better with age.
Better with age.
Love it.
All right. So, you got a haiku?
I do got a haiku.
All right.
Do you got a haiku?
I do.
Do we have any other haikus?
We do. Mary Grace sent in 3. She's making us look bad. As usual.
3.
Yeah. I did 1.
I did 1.
And I don't even think it's that good.
I don't think mine's that good either.
Maybe we should just skip ours and go right to Mary Grace.
Well.
We put in the effort. We should go and read them.
Yeah.
It'll just make her look all that much better. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's true. Are we playing rock, paper, scissors to see who goes first?
Well, I mean, I normally beat you at rock, paper, scissors, so.
Maybe.
Kind of got your number.
Let's see.
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Dang it! Dang it. All right, fine. You going first or second? You who's going first?
I'll go first.
All right.
Though the two triumph, their brethren are overcome. Too great Morgoth's guile.
Pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the F brothers, right? Like Finrod and Fingolfin.
The two triumph is actually a reference to Beren and Lúthien. Yeah, they open the chapter.
Right, but that's all. It's just like one paragraph, and then it has nothing. Then it doesn't mention them again in the whole chapter.
Wait, are there rules for writing haikus that I wasn't aware of other than 575?
I thought it was supposed to be a central theme, like based on a central theme of the chapter.
I write my haiku.
If you wanted to write a Beren and Lúthien haiku, that was like an episode and 2 episodes ago.
If I had wanted to write a haiku about tacos, I would have written a haiku about tacos.
Okay. Well, can we just mention for a minute that how appropriate it was that we discussed Beren and Lúthien just like the week before Valentine's Day? Yeah.
It was serendipitous.
It's like the ultimate, most romantic story ever. Not that I like Valentine's Day or anything, but...
I really don't want to... Yeah. Didn't we talk about that, though? I thought we talked about not wanting to associate Beren and Lúthien with Valentine's Day. Because, we think Valentine's Day is cheesy.
Did we talk about that?
Maybe we didn't talk about it on the podcast, but I feel like we talked about it.
You talked about it with yourself in your head.
It's possible.
I don't remember that.
I do that sometimes.
Valentine's Day is kind of cheesy.
Mm-hmm. It's very cheesy.
But, yeah, it is. It's very cheesy. Okay.
It's totally a made up.
I'm sorry. You can edit that part out of the podcast.
Too late.
I brought that up.
I'm too lazy to edit, so.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. All right. Now, here's my haiku. Mine is not about Beren and Lúthien because that was last episode.
Yeah?
That was like 2 episodes ago.
Okay.
And 1 episode ago.
So is this how you make up for your haiku being really bad? No. You put my haiku down?
Maybe.
Yeah. I know how it is.
That's why I degrade others to build myself up. Got a problem with it? Okay, here's mine. Treason, lies, deceit. Death comes, sparing only one. The one most wanted.
That was a little confusing. It was kind of like who's on first.
What? How was that like who's on first?
Read it again.
Treason, lies, deceit. Death comes, sparing only one. The one most wanted. Do you get it, or do I need to explain it to you?
Well, I think I think it was the one. The first time I heard it confused me a little because it was like, one, and then wanted.
Oh.
And so I thought like one was like one. Treason, lies, deceit. One.
I see.
Yeah.
So you're just jealous, actually, I think.
We'll read it again. Hold on.
A third time?
Yes.
For reals. Maybe I should give it to you, and you can read it. And then maybe if you see the words,
I like hearing
it will
you
help
read
you.
it.
All right. Treason, lies, deceit. Death comes, sparing only one. The one most wanted. Do you get it now?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
It's referring to Húrin, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the treason, lies, deceit. It's talking about how the men, right, deceived the elves and helped Morgoth win, right? And how everybody else dies except the one that Morgoth really wants to die.
All right.
Yeah.
Good. It's better than mine.
Yeah, it was. I know.
Good job.
I'm glad we caught that on tape recorder.
It's not saying much. I'm just.
That's like what I say when my nieces or nephew are like, "Hey, Aunt Greta, I'm taller than you."
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not really much of an accomplishment, but yeah, you.
Good job.
Yeah.
Way to grow. Way to have genes.
Way to be 5 feet 1 inch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Mary Grace. So she wrote 3, so we'll go ahead and read 3.
And they're all for this chapter?
Just to make up for like the 3 or 4 minutes that just passed and where we read both of our haikus, and it was probably like people are just like falling asleep now.
That's probably true.
So we're going to give Mary
We'll
Grace
wake them back up with Mary Grace's haiku.
Right.
Okay, do it.
Maedhros, one great son of Feanor, desires war upon Morgoth.
Yes. Yes, he does.
Next, the Lord of Balrogs duels the King of the Noldor, but Fingon falls.
I see what she's doing.
And then lastly, the realm of Fingon is dissolved to the cursed wind, like Feanor's sons.
Ooh.
Nice.
Good.
Yes.
Well done, Mary Grace.
Yeah.
I like how she did that.
Yeah, it's kind of like a haiku of haikus, you know?
Yeah.
It's like 3 haikus.
I was thinking it was like a haiku long form poem. It was like a long form in the form of haikus. She basically summarized like the high points of the chapter. Yeah.
So in a way, it's like a haiku.
Yep. Exactly. That's exactly what I was just thinking. That was embarrassing.
Sorry, that was my nerd snort.
Oh, was that what that was?
Yeah.
I thought that was your pig impression.
Something like that. It was a bad nerd snort.
It was a really bad nerd snort. What about Josh?
Josh is busy, and I think when we take a week off, he sometimes forgets to submit stuff. So I'm sure I'll be getting a note from him right after this, being like, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I forgot," or something like that. So
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I'll try not to hold it against him again.
Alrighty. Okay.
Well, thank you, Mary Grace.
Yes, thanks, Mary Grace. All right. So, chapter 20. So, we have 5 chapters of the Silmarillion left.
Is that it?
5 chapters.
Woo.
Of course, this is a relatively long and dense chapter. They're not as long as Beren and Lúthien, but the next one of Turin is really long.
It is really long.
And it's good, but it's not. I personally don't find it as wonderful as Beren and Lúthien.
Sure.
Others might disagree with me, but it's still good. Just FYI, and then yeah. Anyway,
all right.
so 5 chapters left.
5.
Starting with the 5th right here.
Stretch.
The home stretch, indeed. So we're coming off the heels of this big victory where, Beren and Lúthien still get a Silmaril back.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And though Beren dies, Lúthien, there's this great moment where Lúthien decides that she is going to take on his mortality.
Right.
And gain his life back.
Right.
But because she takes, but basically they are dead to everyone else. And that's what we find out at the beginning of this chapter, right? They're, they don't really, like, they're not available to others really in the way they were before, right? Even though they come back and they still live and they come back to Middle Earth, and so we find out what happens to them in the first little paragraph here. But even what I'm going to say is that even though there was that great triumph there, it's not like everything is like totally on the upswing from here on out. Right?
Yeah.
Things are actually going to start getting even worse now, and beginning with this chapter.
Right.
Beginning with this chapter. So I'll just open and I'll just read this this little bit. It is said that Beren and Lúthien returned to the northern lands of Middle-earth and dwelt together for a time as living man and woman. And they took up again their mortal form in Doriath. Those that saw them were both glad and fearful, and Lúthien went to Menegroth and healed the winter of Thingol with a touch of her hand. But Melian looked in her eyes and read the doom that was written there and turned away. For she knew that a parting beyond the end of the world had come between them. And no grief of loss has been heavier than the grief of Melian the Maya in that hour. Then Beren and Lúthien went forth alone, fearing neither thirst nor hunger. And they passed beyond the river Galeon into Osiriand, and dwelt there in Tol Galen the Green Isle, in the midst of Adurant, until all tidings of them ceased. The Eldar afterwards called that country Dorfirn Iguinar, the land of the dead that live. And there was born J.R.R. the Beautiful, who was after known as J.R.R. Eluchil, who is Thingol's heir. No mortal man spoke ever again with Beren, son of Barahir, and none saw Beren or Lúthien leave the world, or marked where at last their bodies lay. So, interesting little note there about, they come back to life, and they live in this kind of like secluded little earthly paradise, maybe, and they actually produce offspring, right?
Yeah.
Is
that
but
boy or girl? Dior.
Boy.
Dior.
Yeah. But other than that, we really don't know what becomes of them, right? They just seem to pass out of this world. So there's a little more said of them later, but that's their story is essentially done, at this point. However, so Lúthien, being a good daughter, goes and heals the winter of Thingol with a touch of her hand. So she does return at least to see her mother and father before she moves along. Right. But Melian, who is definitely Thingol's better half, it's really sad. No grief of loss has been heavier than the grief that she suffered in that hour. Right.
Is that because she knows that when she dies, her daughter will not be going to the halls of Maedhros or
right? Yeah.
Whatever. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's no reassurance that they're ever going to see each other again, right? Because Melian, being a Maya, she's immortal, and so she'll pass over. She'll whenever she leaves Middle Earth, she'll go back over to Valinor, right?
Right.
And Melian, or I'm sorry, Lúthien, we don't know what's going to happen to her, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the little epilogue to the story of Beren and Lúthien that opens the chapter. Moving on, did you have anything else you wanted to say about Beren and Lúthien?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, moving on.
Except that I will miss them. I will miss them.
Yeah. So, their little victory has gotten everybody sort of riled up, and all of a sudden everybody's like, yeah, maybe it's time to just stick it to Morgoth, right? Like, look what, man, if a she-elf and a man can do this, why can't the huge armies? Like, Morgoth must be, really at a bad place right now. So Maedhros perceives that Morgoth was not unassailable. Maedhros being the eldest son of Fëanor.
Right.
And so he decides that he's going to try to form a league to go and attack Morgoth, to go and just assault Morgoth while he's apparently weak. He he tries to enlist different different factions, and he's only partially successful in bringing all the free peoples of Beleriand together for this assault.
Right.
He's able to get his brothers, but he's not. There's still some other parties that don't really trust him. Of course, Thingol is not willing to help. And it says he sent to Thingol and reminded him with haughty words of their claim, summoning him to yield to Silmaril or become their enemy.
That was probably not the best way to get him on their side.
Right.
I mean, they could have been a little more diplomatic.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Instead of marching in there and being like, "That's ours, give it back."
Right.
Or I'll kill you.
Mm-hmm.
Not gonna make many friends that way.
True. However, Maedhros does manage to obtain the help of the Nalgrim, who are the dwarves, right? So he's got, he's got the mighty dwarves helping him out.
Yep.
And he gets different groups of men who are willing to help him out. And then the dwarves of Hidlam, right, who are the ones to the west. So their goal here is to basically kind of put the squeeze on Morgoth from the west and from the east.
Basically surround them. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Turning into the cheese in a cheese sandwich.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then just
Just gobble them down.
Yeah, gobble down the cheese sandwich. Yeah. But let's read a little bit about Thingol and the Silmaril here. So, Maedhros and his brothers, being constrained by their oath, had before sent to Thingol and reminded him with haughty words of their claim, summoning him to yield to Silmaril or become their enemy. Melian counseled him to surrender it, but the words of the sons of Fëanor were proud and threatening, and Thingol was filled with anger, thinking of the anguish of Lúthien and the blood of Beren whereby the jewel had been won, despite the malice of Celegorm and Corofin. And every day that he looked upon the Silmaril, the more he desired to keep it forever, for such was its power. Therefore he sent back the messengers with scornful words. Maedhros made no answer, for he had now begun to devise the league and union of elves. But Celegorm and Corofin vowed openly to slay Thingol and destroy his people, if they came victorious from war, and the jewel was not surrendered of free will. Then Thingol fortified the marches of his realm and went not to war, nor any out of Dorioth save Mablung and Beleg, who were unwilling to have no part in these great deeds. To them Thingol gave leave to go, so long as they served not the sons of Fëanor, and they joined themselves to the host of Fingon. So Thingol is actually counseled by Melian just to give up the Silmaril.
Right.
Yep. We see a parallel here to maybe the operation of the Silmaril on Thingol to how the ring operates on Frodo and others, right? It's this possessiveness, extreme possessiveness. Of course, it doesn't help that and who among us doesn't understand when somebody comes up to us demanding something in a really uppity way,
Oh yeah.
It makes it even harder, even if you know it to be the right thing. So, assuming that Melian is actually giving him wise counsel here, but knowing what a hothead Thingol is, it's there's no way he's going to give this thing up.
No.
Especially when they come to him, in this way, and especially given the fact that, his daughter was the one that captured this thing,
Yeah.
And that Celegorm and Corofin who were the brothers of Maedhros, were such jerks in the whole thing.
Yeah, not a whole lot working in their favor. That's
No,
for sure.
not a whole lot working in their favor at all. Yeah, good comment, Greta.
Yeah.
Give yourself a high five. All right, moving on. All right. So now,
Just call me Captain Obvious from now on, okay?
Yeah, good job. All right. So they journey up to the gates of Angband, and the battle starts.
Yep.
He gathers all the strength. Maedhros gathers all the strength of elves and men and dwarves, and resolves to assault Angband from east and west. and he purposed to march with banners displayed in open force over Unfoglyth. But when he had drawn forth, as he hoped, the armies of Morgoth in answer, then Fingon should issue forth from the passes of Hidlam. And thus they thought to take the might of Morgoth as between anvil and hammer and break it to pieces, or in Greta's words, as between a piece of cheese between two pieces of bread.
I said the cheese and a cheese sandwich.
That's right.
That's what I said.
That's the image, though.
Mm-hmm.
Like an anvil and a hammer, like two pieces of bread and a piece of cheese. Will our might, the force of our might, come against thee? Not very scary. Not very frightening. It's a good thing you weren't leading people into battle.
Probably.
All right, good. Moving on again. Where are you tonight?
I don't know what else to say. I'm like, yeah. You're doing a really good job summarizing things.
Okay, well.
It's not rocket science.
Well, you know what? Little give and take here, you know.
I will say battle plans just don't do much for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like reading Winds of War or whatever, I skipped over all the chapters that had to do with battles or battle planning. I'm like, get to the action, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't care how you got there. Just tell me what happens once you got there.
Just kill people and blow stuff up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
You're one of those people. All right.
Mm-hmm.
One
More
of them.
gore, the better.
The more gore, the better.
All right.
Yeah.
Where are we now?
Where are we? What's going on?
I'm lost you.
We're on 190.
Okay,
the top
good.
of 190.
I'm on the right page. Okay.
Right. So they're just talking about what the plan is, and the battle starts.
Mm-hmm.
Fingon, of course, is the High King of the Noldor, right? So he's coming from Hidlam. The appointed day, the morning of midsummer, the trumpet of the Eldar greeted the rising of the sun. In the east was raised the standard of the sons of Fëanor, and in the west the standard of Fingon. Then Fingon looked out from the walls of Ithil Sirion, and his host was arrayed in the valleys and the woods upon the east of Arid Wethrin, well hid from the eyes of the enemy. But he knew that it was very great. For there all the Noldor of Hidlam were assembled, together with elves of the Falas and Gwendor's company from Nargothrond, and he had great strength of men. Upon the right were the host of Dor-Lomin, and all the valor of Húrin and Huor his brothers, and to them had come Haldir of Brethil with many men of the woods. And so something seems funny because there's kind of a black cloud coming up from Thangorodrim, which is the three mountains above Angband, right? The three towers of towering mountains above Angband. And it says, a shadow of doubt fell upon Fingon's heart, and he looked eastward, seeking if he might see with elven sight the dust of Unfoglyth rising beneath the hosts of Maedhros. He knew not that Maedhros was hindered in his setting forth by the guile of Uldor the Accursed, who deceived him with false warnings of assault from Angband. So the plan had been, of course, to attack at the same time from both angles.
Right, yeah.
But now the fog of war hits, right? So the fog of war is a general term they use to describe how you have a great plan going into the battle, and then everything goes wrong because war is crazy.
And people don't think straight, and they get anxious and nervous.
You get anxious, and stuff that you didn't plan for happens, and things move faster than you expect them to.
Right.
And the other guy, lo and behold, was actually planning for you to attack him, and so he had his own little things. And,
he's playing,
he was planning to get you with little gotchas.
Right.
So,
right.
So that's where we are. And so Fingon doesn't know what to do at this point, right? He's like, do I attack or
do I wait?
Do I wait for Maedhros to show up? But lo and behold, who comes forth?
Turgon
of
Gondolin.
That's right. All of a sudden, Turgon of Gondolin comes forward. Turgon, the forces of Gondolin. Yeah, the forces of Gondolin had not been, willing really to come forth in battle for a while, right? They've been a hidden kingdom.
Right.
But Turgon not only comes forth, but as he does so, Fingon yells out, the shadow passes from his heart, and he yells out, Utulien Aure, Aya Eldalie, Ar Antantari, Utulien Aure, which I hope he said it a lot better than I did, or it would have
I'm
been
gonna
very
say,
inspiring.
I think he kind of butchered that.
I'm sure it was very inspiring. when
I'm
he
sure
said
it was. I'm sure it was.
The day has come. Behold, people of the Eldar and fathers of men, the day has come. And all those who heard his great voice echo in the hills answered, crying, Alta Ilome, the night is passing. Right? So this is a time of, they're like, oh yeah, we're really going to get him now, right? Not only are the forces of Fingon coming from the west, and then Maedhros coming from the east, but Turgon and the forces of Gondolin are coming up from the south, right? So man, they are about to just dish it out to Morgoth.
Yeah.
However, Morgoth's crafty.
Very crafty.
Yeah. So Morgoth it says he chose his hour. He knew much of what was done and designed by his enemies, and he had a little plan to hold back Maedhros, while he did with Fingon and Turgon as he pleased. And so the hearts of the Noldor grew hot, and their captains wished to assail their foes upon the plain. But Húrin spoke against it, and bade them beware the guile of Morgoth, whose strength was always greater than it seemed, and his purpose other than he revealed. And though the signal of the approach of Maedhros came not, and the host grew impatient, Húrin urged them still to await it, and to let the orcs break themselves and assault upon the hills. So Húrin's like, hold on, I know we're all anxious to attack, but we're not ready yet. We're not ready yet.
Right.
And that's when things really start to go bad. That's when things start to get ugly. The captain of Morgoth in the west had been commanded to draw Fingon out swiftly from his hills by whatever means he could. He marched on, therefore, until the front of his battles was drawn up before the streams of Sirion, from the walls of the fortress of Ithel Sirion to the inflowing of Ribble and at the fen of Sarek. And the outposts of Fingon could see the eyes of their enemies. But there was no answer to his challenge, and the taunts of the orcs faltered as they looked upon the silent walls and the hidden threats of the hills. And the captain of Morgoth sends riders out with tokens of parley. They bring out Gelmir of Gwilyn, the lord of Nargothrond, whom they had captured in the Bragalach. They had captured him previously, and they blind him. So basically, they do all this awful stuff to Gelmir. They blind him first, and then they hew off his hands and feet and his head at last within sight of the elves, and they just leave him there. So it's almost like they're taunting them, right? They're trying to get them to come forward by doing all these cruel things. Right. And Gwendor of Nargothrond is the brother of Gelmir, and his wrath is kindled when he sees this. Obviously, it's his bro, right? It's his brother who's getting killed.
Yeah. And not like, not in a normal, like, humane way, right? I mean, he's literally being butchered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is being butchered. And Gwendor's fire turns into this pursuit of the heralds, and he goes and slays them, and then that really lights the rest of the Noldor on fire, right? They're just like, they're burning with rage now, and
so it worked.
It did. It drew them forth, right?
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of the problem of the Noldor, maybe, is that a
little too hot-tempered.
They are. They're a lot like Fëanor, right?
Yeah.
They're hot-tempered.
Yeah.
Hot-blooded, check it and see.
I don't know what that song.
Yeah, you do. You know that song? What's wrong, man?
Who sings it?
I think it's like Foreigner.
We should keep it that way.
Yeah. Oh man, you got me good. Haven't done that one in a while. At least you contributed something to this episode.
I was just saving it up, waiting for my moment.
Well, yeah.
Cha-ching!
Hot-blooded, check it and see.
That doesn't sound like Foreigner.
Of 103.
Oh, that song. Don't look it up on your phone.
Oh, baby, can you do more than
That's
this?
right. No, put it down. Put it down.
Hot-blooded.
Okay. So the Noldor, we've established, are hot-blooded.
Uh-huh.
And Morgoth taunts work and draw them forth, even though they were trying to bide their time and wait.
Right. And so they leap forth, and the trumpets are sounded, and they go on the attack.
Right.
And it says, in fact, it was so fell and swift that the designs of Morgoth went astray, right? So Morgoth almost overstepped by doing this because they were so mad. Right? Even though he was trying to draw them forth early, like they came out so angry and fighting so hard and so swiftly that...
Well, it says that they burst through the gate.
Yeah.
And they slew the guards on the stairs of Angband, and that Morgoth trembled upon his deep throne, hearing them beat upon his doors. So, I mean, they did, they did penetrate Angband, right? And they made Morgoth a little bit nervous, right? But then they got trapped.
They did. They went too far. For Fingon could not come to their aid. They got so far down that Fingon could not come to their aid. By many secret doors and Thangorodrim, Morgoth had let issue forth his main host that he held in waiting, and Fingon was beaten back with great loss from the walls. So that's kind of where the whole thing starts.
Yeah. And
then it says, on the 4th day of the war, there began Nirnaeth Arnoediad, Unnumbered Tears.
So that what we just read about the Noldor breaking into Angband, that was actually not part of this battle? Or was?
No, it was. Yeah, it was.
Okay. Because it says, on the 4th day of the war, there began Unnumbered Tears.
Yeah.
So I thought that meant that in the 4th day of the war, was that just saying it went from bad to worse? Or... Because it says, like, on the 4th day of the war, there began Nirnaeth or whatever.
I don't understand what you're asking.
We'll see that first sentence of that first full paragraph on page 192.
It
says, then in the plain of wherever, on the 4th day of the war, there began, right? And then it mentions the battle, unnumbered tears. So I thought it was saying that the actual battle began on the 4th day of the war. Like this particular battle. Do you know what I'm saying? But what does that mean? There began.
I think you're reading too much into it. It's just saying this is on the 4th day that this is happening. The 4th day of the battle.
Okay, so just ignore the word began there.
I don't think you're supposed to ignore it. Like what?
I know, but it just sounds like if something's beginning, then it seems like then what came before.
They're just saying there's this part of the battle is called Unnumbered Tears, right?
Okay, so that
it's kind of commemorated as Unnumbered Tears.
Okay. So the part that we just discussed was not considered part of the Unnumbered Tears.
Right. There wasn't anything bad happening yet. Well, I mean, there was bad stuff happening.
Oh, right, because it was basically like
it's just saying the bad stuff is getting ready to happen.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
All right, we're going to take a quick break because there's an annoying sound and I need to go turn it off. So.
All right.
We'll be right back.
Don't go away. Hey, Tolkien Roadsters. What's shaking? Greta Carswell here, just getting my groove on to the Tolkien Haiku theme music. Man, that's an awesome song. You know what else is awesome? Feedback on the Tolkien Road on iTunes. Oh yeah, you heard me right. iTunes feedback is one of the best ways you can tell the world about your undying love for this podcast. Because it lets those knuckleheads at Apple know that the Tolkien Road is where it's at. I mean, come on. Why didn't they know that already? Am I right? So next time you're waiting in line to pick up some delicious tacos, surfing the World Wide Web, brushing up on a Tom Bombadil factoid, or keeping it real in whatever way you keep it real, pop on over to iTunes and let the human race know what you think about the Tolkien Road. We're all dying to know, for reals. Party on, y'all.
All right. Break over.
Bummer.
So, time to talk about some more similar... Oh, what's that? Here. All right.
Gotta keep this PG.
This
all
is
right.
a clean podcast. All right. Yes. Okay.
Rated E for everyone.
Rated E for everyone. Rated F for foreigner. And Fëanor.
And Fëanor.
That's right.
And Fingolfin.
And
Finrod.
Finarfin.
And Finarfin.
Yeah. And
Fingolfin.
Fingon. And Finrod Felagund.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
A lot of F's.
A lot of F names. Then you got old Turgon.
I know.
They probably made fun of him.
They probably did.
That's probably why he wanted to have his hidden kingdom. He was like, you guys always make fun of me. I'm going to go start my own hidden kingdom.
Only people with T names are allowed in.
Like Terrence Trent D'Arby. And
Theodore Thornberry.
And Toonces the driving cat.
Alright. Toonces. I forgot about Toonces.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, moving on.
Over.
Moving on. Back to Unnumbered Tears.
Yeah.
Enough fun for now. Back to Unnumbered Tears. Alright.
Back to the sad stuff.
So, Unnumbered Tears, Morgoth lets loose his forces from different openings. The host of Fingon is driven back. As on the fifth day, as night fell, and they were still far from the arid weather, and the orcs surrounded the host of Hithlum, and they fought until day, pressed ever closer. In the morning came hope when the horns of Turgon were heard as he marched up with the main host of Gondolin, for they had been stationed southward, guarding the pass of Sirion, and Turgon restrained most of his people from the rash onslaught. Now he hastened to the aid of his brother, and the Gondolindrim were strong and clad in mail, and their ranks shone like a river of steel in the sun. And so the forces of Turgon break through the ranks of the orcs, and Turgon and Fingon join up with Húrin, or
right.
Turgon and Húrin join up with Fingon.
Yes.
And they're having a good old time fighting. They were glad in the midst of battle.
Mm-hmm.
And hopes renewed in their hearts. The trumpets of, and then suddenly Maedhros comes along. So like, now
things are starting to fall into place.
Now
right?
it's falling into place,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Now Maedhros finally shows up, right?
Yeah.
Just like his son of Fëanor to take forever to get there. He tells, he's like, let's go do this thing, and then he's the last one to show up, right?
Come, yeah.
He's probably brooding over a Silmaril or something like that,
Yeah. Something lame like that.
So, and then, but even as Maedhros shows up, Morgoth looses his last strength, and Angband is emptied. And there came wolves and wolf riders, and there came Balrogs and dragons, and Glaurung, father of dragons. The strength and terror of the great worm was now great indeed, and elves and men withered before him. And he came.
So the great worm is like
The dragon.
Is that another name for Glaurung?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, because I had pictured like
You
this
pictured a giant worm.
earthworm. I did.
Yeah.
Like something from.
Yeah, that's an interesting
Yeah.
thing. Worm means dragon, and I think maybe an Anglo-Saxon or something like
I
that.
have no idea. Okay.
Or it's just a term for it. It might even be like a derogatory term or something, But dragons are serpents
Yeah.
or snakes. Snakes
Yeah.
or worms. You'd see how that kind of
I can see that. Yeah, how
that kind of works.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
At least that's me just trying to think through how that connection is. I've always
Yeah.
found that puzzling, but Tolkien does that in different places.
He calls dragons worms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I literally had pictured like a big fat earthworm. And I was like, how is that scary?
Oh, so scary.
I know. That doesn't sound maybe.
I do chew, but I don't have a mouth.
Can't you just step on it and squish it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except that it's huge.
Right.
We'll just create a giant shoe to step on it. The elves and men wither before him, and he came between the hosts of Maedhros and Fingon and swept them apart. Yet
The
even
next line
so,
is going to say, this next line is pretty important,
yeah.
right?
Go ahead, read it. You think it's so important? Go
I
ahead,
do,
read
I
it
think it's
yourself.
really important.
Yeah.
Yet neither by wolf, nor Balrog, nor by dragon would Morgoth have achieved his end, but for the treachery of men. In this hour the plots of Ulfang were revealed. Many of the Easterlings turned and fled, their hearts being filled with lies and fear. But the sons of Ulfang went over suddenly to Morgoth and drove in upon the rear of the sons of Fëanor. And in the confusion that they wrought, they came near to the standard of Maedhros.
Mm-hmm.
They reaped not the reward that Morgoth promised them. Shock of shocks. For Malgor slew Eldar the Accursed, the leader in treason, and the sons of Bor slew Ulfast and Olroth ere they themselves were slain.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I just thought that was really interesting. It was like, well, dang it. Like, if y'all had just been loyal, you may have succeeded, right? I mean, isn't this basically saying that none of Morgoth's horrible creatures would have been able to defeat the elves and the dwarves if these traitors had been true?
I think it's saying
right?
that if it hadn't been for this betrayal, then there would have been a much better chance, right?
Yeah.
This kind of reminds me of Braveheart, where it's like the battle towards the end where he's like got all of the nobles in their little the nobles and their armies behind him, and then like they all start like turning away from him, like they made that deal before to betray him, and they all like turn their backs upon him and everything, and like right away, and he's just like, dude, we were gonna do this, you know. Yeah. I mean, so and this you can see where a lot of distrust is sown here. That's going to last a long time between elves and men.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's interesting. Many of the Easterlings turned and fled, their hearts being filled with lies and fear. But the sons of Ulfang went over suddenly to Morgoth, and so they actually join up forces. Not they just flee; they join up forces with him.
Right, they help him.
And they don't reap the reward. Maglor slew Uldor the Accursed, the leader in the region. The sons of Bor slew Ulfast and Ulworth ere they themselves were slain. But new strength of evil men came up that Uldor had summoned and kept hidden in the eastern hills. And the host of Maedhros was assailed now on three sides, and it broke and was scattered and fled this way and that. The sons of Fëanor all survive, still all alive.
They were wounded, but not killed.
Right. And they gather a remnant of the Noldor and the Nogrim about them, and they hew their way out and escape to the east. So the dwarves do fight nobly. They stand firm. They're the last of the eastern forces to stand. It says they withstand fire more heartily than either elves or men, and it was their custom, moreover, to wear great masks in battle, hideous to look upon. And those stood them in great stead against the dragon. I found that line a little bit funny because it's like the dwarves were awesome in battle. One of the reasons was because they wore hideous masks. So I think it's funny to think about. And it says like, and those stood them in good stead against the dragons. I just think it's funny to think about like Glaurung, this like huge like dragon like flying along, like spouting fire everywhere, and like his wings like knocking people over, and then all of a sudden he sees a dwarf with a scary mask, and he's like, oh, he like swerves away. I just think it's funny, like the funny mental image,
Yeah.
What's that?
Scared of a little scary mask.
But I mean, hey, I'm scared of spiders, so
I'm scared of clowns, so I mean, same thing, right?
What? Spiders and clowns.
Spiders.
Same thing.
Masks. I was thinking more masks.
Oh.
Clowns wear masks.
Yeah. You're not so much scared of clowns, are you? You just like find them creepy.
They just really, really creep me. Yeah. Like I can't deal.
Yeah.
Like I can't be around them. Yeah. They really. No, I'm scared of them.
You're scared of them?
I am scared of them, but I do find them creepy. So anyway, I can kind of relate to old Glaurung here. That's all I'm saying. Scary masks are scary,
Yeah.
Whether they're like made of wood or just painted on your face, they're so scary.
And but for them, Glaurung and his brood would have withered all that was left of the Noldor. But the Nogrim made a circle about him when he assailed them, and even his mighty armor was not foolproof against the blows of their axes. And when in his rage, Glaurung turned and struck down Azaghal, lord of Belegost, and crawled over him. With his last stroke, Azaghal drove a knife into his belly, and so wounded him that he fled the field. And the beasts of Angband in dismay followed after him. So they get a good one in on Glaurung, although he's not dead, but he does flee.
Yeah.
So the dwarves get, they also suffer, but they live to fight another day.
Right.
The west, things get pretty bad. So you have the east. So basically, the eastern flank, even though it started out, they were late to battle, and then they kind of get their tails whooped. right? Especially because of the betrayal of men. That's what happens in the east. The sons of Feanor escape. Glaurung takes a knife in his belly, so he's wounded, though not mortally right now. And then in the west, we go back over to the west. Meanwhile, in the west, Fingon and Turgon are assailed by a tide of foes thrice greater than all the force that was left to them. Gothmog, lord of Balrogs, right? So you remember what a Balrog is, right?
A monster.
Yeah, it's like, remember in Lord of the Rings when, when they're in Moria and then the demon, the giant demon comes and Gandalf has...
right. Yep.
That's a Balrog right there, right?
Okay,
so literally, they're there fighting a Balrog. And Gothmog drives a dark wedge between the elven hosts surrounding King Fingon and thrusting Turgon and Húrin aside towards the Fen of Sarek. And he turns upon Fingon. And it says, "At last Fingon stood alone with his guard dead about him, and he fought with Gothmog until another Balrog came behind and cast a thong of fire about him. Then Gothmog hewed him with his black axe, and a white flame sprang up from the helm of Fingon as it was cloven. Thus fell the High King of the Noldor, and they beat him into the dust with their maces, and his banner, blue and silver, they trod into the mire of his blood." So Fingon dies. So another High King of the Noldor slain.
By the Balrog, right?
Mm-hmm. Húrin and Huor, two men, fight on even though the field is lost. They stand there with Turgon, and the hosts of Morgoth could not yet win the Pass of Sirion, it says. And so Húrin says something very... Húrin and Turgon have an important conversation here. Húrin says, "Go now, Lord, while time is, for in you lives the last hope of the Eldar, and while Gondolin stands, Morgoth shall still no fear in his heart." So Húrin says, just go. Escape while you can. As long as you're there, Morgoth will no fear. We need you to be there in Gondolin. And Turgon answers, "Not long now can Gondolin be hidden, and being discovered it must fall." And Huor says, "Yet it stands but a little while, then out of your house shall come the hope of elves and men. This I say to you, Lord, with the eyes of death, that we part here forever, and I shall not look on your white walls again. From you and from me a new star shall arise. Farewell." So, prophetic words.
Yeah.
From Huor to Turgon.
I mean, he's basically telling Turgon that he's their only hope, right? Like, if he stays and gets himself killed, like that.
More or less, yeah. But the important, the kind of prophetic bit of this is, from you and from me a new star shall arise. From you and from me a new star shall arise. So somehow their families are going to be joined. Their lines are going to be joined, and a new star shall arise. Is what that sounds like.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, Maeglin shows up. Maeglin, Turgon's sister's son.
What is his sister's son?
A nephew. Right? Because Maeglin's mother was, what was her name? His father was Eol, the Dark Elf. And then...
Oh, Maeglin! Yeah, I forgot about Maeglin.
Chapter 16, right?
Yeah.
Arthel. The White Lady of the Noldor. That's
right, I see it.
Okay. So Turgon departs, takes the counsel of Húrin and Huor, departs. And...
so he does... Well...
What?
Yeah, so he does leave. Turgon leaves, right? Yeah.
And the hosts of Angband swarm about Húrin and Huor.
So they're basically the only two left.
Right.
Yeah.
Huor falls pierced with a venomed arrow in his eye, and all the valiant men of Hador were slain about him in a heap. And the orcs hewed their heads and piled them as a mound of gold in the sunset. Last of all, Húrin stood alone. Then he cast aside his shield and wielded an axe two-handed, and it is sung that the axe smoked in the black blood of the troll guard of Gothmog until it withered. And each time then he slew Húrin, cried, "Alray and Tuluva, day shall come again." He utters that cry 70 times, and eventually he kills a lot of orcs, but he's bound by Gothmog and dragged to Angband. And that's the end of Nirnaeth Arnoediad. So, but not the end of the chapter.
Not a
just yet.
victory.
Not a victory by any means.
Uh-huh.
Pretty much a disaster,
Uh-huh.
right? Fingon dies.
Yeah.
Húrin is captured. Huor dies. Turgon has to retreat completely. The sons of Feanor are scattered.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All kinds of men betray the elves.
Uh-huh.
And now Morgoth, the siege of Angband is just completely, the siege of Angband had ended before Beren and Lúthien, but the dream of, keeping Morgoth at bay is just done now, right? I mean, you basically had almost all of the powerful components of Balerion to come against Morgoth, and they failed, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So now it's like you got Dorioth, and you've got some other groups, but you don't have any of the big hitters left.
You have Gondolin.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, Gondolin is still there, but even Gondolin's diminished some now, right?
Yeah.
Because they would have lost some forces in the battle.
Right.
So yeah, unnumbered tears, especially with the death of Fingon and the betrayal of men. So the realm of Fingon is no more. Men and elves are estranged. You have, except for the three houses of the Edain, right? So you still have the elf friends who are on good terms with the elves,
right?
But for the rest of men, not so much.
Yeah.
Where does it say it? It talks about the sons of Feanor. Where does it talk about?
The sons of Feanor wandered as leaves before the wind.
Yes, thank you.
Their arms were scattered and their league broken, and they took to a wild and woodland life beneath the feet of Irid Lindan, mingling with the green elves of Osirion, bereft of their power and glory of old.
So, it's like they're completely just everything. The greatness that once was the sons of Feanor is now greatly diminished. Right? They're not able to, muster great armies or anything like that anymore. Their power has greatly diminished. But they're not completely done yet. But there's just not much. They're not the mighty force they once were.
Right. They've seen better days.
Dorioth indeed remained, and the halls of Nargothrond were hidden, but Morgoth gave small heed to them, either because he knew little of them, or because their hour was not yet come in the deep purposes of his malice. Many now fled to the havens and took refuge behind Cirdan's walls, and the mariners passed up and down the coast and harried the enemy with swift landings. But Morgoth, even there, he goes and attacks Hithlum and Nevrost, and they eventually make their way all the way down to the havens, and the havens are laid in ruin. And Cirdan's people are slain or enslaved, but a few escaped by sea. Among them Gil-galad, who I think we talked about a little bit with Lord of the Rings because he's sung about in Lord of the Rings. Sam, I think, sings a song about him. Gil-galad is the son of Fingon, and so he's one of the Noldor. And maybe you can make a case that he's the High King. He's the rightful High King of the Noldor. This remnant sails with Cirdan south to the Isle of Balar, and they made a refuge for all that could come hither. So if you look back at your map, just to give us, use the map, right? So the battle took place up here on Foglith, right? Up here at the top, right? And Maedhros and his forces came from the east, from this area, right. Lothlon. And then Fingon came from Hithlum over here. So that's kind of how they were trying to put the squeeze on him.
Right.
Gondolin came up through here, through the pass of Sirion, right? And tried to help out there. But now they're all scattered. And so Morgoth's forces basically come over here. They overrun Hithlum, and then into Nevrost, and they come all the way down into Fallis, right? Just completely overrun the coastlands over here.
Yeah.
All right, Hithlum, Nevrost, Fallis, and Cirdan, who had built the havens, they're all forced to flee to this Isle of Balar here, right? This Isle of Balar. So, man, from once kind of having dominion, the elves had dominion of Beleriand, pretty much in the west, it's a lost cause at this point. They've been driven so far back. And so Turgon bids Cirdan to build 7 swift ships and send them into the west. They're like, okay, it's time to see if the Valar are going to help us now, right? But they never hear any tidings back, right? They never came back to Valar, save one and the last. The mariners of that ship toiled long in the sea, and returning at last in despair, they foundered in a great storm within sight of the coasts of Middle-earth. But one of them was saved by Ulmo from the wrath of Ase, and the waves bore him up and cast him ashore in Nevrost. His name was Voronway, and he was one of those that Turgon sent forth as messengers from Gondolin.
So only one?
One of the ships comes back.
Okay, only one of the 7 come back, okay. And out of that one ship, just one person.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Or one elf, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, the mariners of that ship toiled long in the sea, and returning at last in despair, so.
Yeah. Not a very good rate of return on the investment. Huh?
No, the Valar are still, whatever the Valar want the elves to do to get their help, the elves haven't figured it out yet.
Right.
Yeah, they're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
What price they got to pay. So Morgoth, Morgoth's main concern right now is Gondolin, right? So he's swept over everything else in the west. The sons of Feanor are weak. You've got Doriath and Nargothrond, which he doesn't think too much about. But he knows about Gondolin because they tried to attack him.
Right.
So his mind turns to Turgon. And he was the one who he most desired to take or to destroy. And that thought troubles him, right? It's like he's the one that got away, right?
That's the one who my haiku was about.
Turgon?
Turgon.
Okay.
So you were wrong. It wasn't about Húrin.
Oh, okay.
You got Húrin. It was Turgon.
Right.
That was the one he really wanted, right?
You're right.
Yes. Alright, moving on.
It says, for most of all his kin, Morgoth feared Turgon, for of old in Valinor his eye had lighted upon him, and whenever he drew near, a shadow had fallen on his spirit, foreboding that in some time that yet lay hidden, from Turgon ruin should come to him. Alright, so a lot of foreshadowing.
So again, that's where that prophecy, right, of Húrin. So even Morgoth is aware, right? Yeah.
But back to old Húrin, who had been captured, right? He's brought before Morgoth, and he mocks Morgoth. And so Morgoth curses him and his wife Morwen and their offspring, and sets a doom upon them of darkness and sorrow. And taking Húrin from prison, he set him in a chair of stone upon a high place of Thungorodrim. There he was bound by the power of Morgoth, and Morgoth standing beside him cursed him again. And he said, sit now there, and look out upon the lands where evil and despair shall come upon those whom thou lovest. Thou hast dared to mock me, and to question the power of Melkor, master of the fates of Arda. Therefore with my eyes thou shalt see, and with my ears thou shalt hear, and never shalt thou move from this place until all is fulfilled, until its bitter end. And even so it came to pass, but it is not said that Húrin asked ever of Morgoth either mercy or death, for himself or for any of his kin.
Tough dude.
Yeah. So that little bit will lead us into the next chapter, because Turambar is the son of Húrin, right? So the next chapter will concern the offspring of, that really concerns the family of Húrin.
Okay.
And then it talks about, just the last little parting note is the Hill of Tears, the creation of the Hill of Tears. So Morgoth has the orcs gather all of the bodies off the field and throws them into a big pile. And it was like a hill that could be seen from afar. So just a huge mound of bodies, but basically creates a little hill, there.
Yeah.
And it was the only place that grass grew in that area, in the desert that Morgoth had made. Right, so a little bit of
dead bodies for it.
What?
So only grass grew amid the dead bodies.
Right, because it was because it was the slaying of like the Eldar and the Edain, right?
Okay.
So it was just basically like saying like they're the sacred
ground,
sacred dead, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they just make really good fertilizer or something like that. So
Gross.
or maybe both. I don't know.
Gross. Stop.
Well, I'm just saying. I'm just trying to allow for that possibility. That's
I
what
know.
Tolkien meant.
I was a little confused by that because I was like, "Yeah, what does that mean?" I mean,
Yeah.
it had some significance, but
Yeah.
yeah. So that's it.
Yeah, I feel like I did a lot of talking.
You did do a lot of talking.
You could have talked more.
I
Now's your
talked plenty.
turn to talk.
I talked plenty. I talked when it was appropriate for me to talk.
What did you think of this chapter?
I liked it.
Yeah.
I thought it was exciting.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of, I wish the outcome of the battle had been different, but then we wouldn't have much to talk about, would we? So.
Well, we had good stuff to talk about.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
What do you think that? Why does Morgoth say, "Curse Húrin," to say, "Therefore with my eyes thou shalt see, and with my ears thou shalt hear"? Why is he cursing him in that way? Do you think?
Well, that's a good question. I think he wants to I don't know, maybe he's trying to get some sympathy, right? If you heard everything I heard and saw everything I saw, you would be horrible like me too. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good question. What do you think? I really don't know.
Yeah, I think Morgoth's miserable.
Misery loves company.
Well, I think there may be nothing more miserable than being him, and so he's like, you can, in order to curse you, since you were mocking me, I'm just going to let you see as I see things, right? As I look out upon things.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
We'll see who has the last laugh.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I thought that was kind of. And when it said that he put him in a stone chair, right? And you stick him outside. Is that where he is? Is he like on the top?
Yeah, he's like up at the top of the mountains, looking out upon, like looking south out upon.
So he's exposed to the elements as well. So that kind of stinks.
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Morgoth has this thing with like torturing people in high places, doesn't he? Because he like hung the other guy. Right?
Yeah. It was Maedhros.
Yeah, it was Maedhros. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, he hung Maedhros. I wonder if the eagle will come and save
Húrin. Oh,
Could.
I'll just have to see.
He could. Oh, that would be awesome. No, I thought it was definitely action packed.
Mm-hmm.
A lot going on.
Yeah, it was dense. There's a lot in this chapter. It's a lot to wade through. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a bummer that that those men went and betrayed the elves, because that could have been it.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been end game for Morgoth,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I don't understand, like, why don't these people learn, like, when you serve a horrible, evil person like Morgoth, he's not going to keep his promises. Nothing good is going to come of it.
Right.
It's just a picture of sin, I guess, and temptation that we all have to fight against, but...
Yeah. Well, but you got to remember, and part of it, too, though, is at different times Morgoth's capable of convincing people that the elves and others are the bad guys and that he's the good guy.
Well, that was his whole plan from the beginning, right? It was just to continually sow those seeds of doubt and...
distrust.
Yeah. And, it worked in his favor in a big way here.
Yeah.
It was good, though. I liked it. I'm not looking forward to the next chapter. It's going to take me like 6 hours to read. But
it's long. I'm wondering, I kind of doubt we can do the whole thing in one episode.
We couldn't do Beren and Lúthien in one episode, so I doubt we can do this one in one episode.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about in it. And it's anyway, we'll get there when we get there.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
We shall.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Any other parting observations? Or
You talked a lot.
true.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Next
You,
time
you understand battle planning much better than I do, though, so it's okay. I was just like bang, bang, pop, pop, shoot, shoot. Somebody dies.
Yeah.
Bummer.
They weren't
Morgoth
using
wins.
they weren't using guns, by the way.
Oh, that's right. They weren't.
Yeah.
Sorry. I was having my, I was trying to quote Lego Movie. Bang, bang. Pop, pop. You know, when he walks into the bar. Or the saloon, rather. And he's like trying to be inconspicuous, and he's making all those. Anyway, I'll stop now.
And also, if you kept talking like that, and your voice had just gotten quieter and quieter.
Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I think that's it, Johnny.
That's it.
Let's not drag it out any longer.
I wasn't trying to. You
I bet most
said
people
something. I was
probably
ready
already
to say
turned it
goodbye,
off.
and you've already dragged it out. All right. Well, this is like the credits, and then like after the credits is that awesome scene after the credits that you got to stick around for.
Yeah.
And people are like, "Oh man, you should have stuck around for the last scene after the credits."
Like Napoleon Dynamite riding on in the wild mare wild mare that he tamed.
That's right.
Yeah, that's what this is. This is the equivalent of Napoleon Dynamite riding out on a wild mare that he tamed.
So I hope you haven't left yet, people.
Yeah, I hope you're sticking around because this is riveting stuff right here. This is like better
This
than
is what
the
everything
actual,
was leading up to.
the actual podcast. Yeah, you're like
Yeah.
totally missing out if you already turned this off.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye bye.
We're saying bye for real now.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye. Next time, chapter 21 of Turin Bar. Bye bye.
Bye,
Thanks.
y'all.
Please remember to check out truemyths.org for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes? It's a great way to support the show and takes less than a minute. On the next episode, we'll continue our discussion of the Silmarillion with Chapter 21 of Turin Bar. Thanks for listening, and until next time, the road goes ever on.